Hi, everybody. Welcome to the inaugural of what will be a yearly now celebration of the Land of 10 Iowa Facebook Live breaking down the early signing period session. First time we've had it. This year, Iowa has already inked, I think it's 15 kids, most likely on its way to 18. I am Bobby LaJust. He's Scott Doctrine. Let's just jump into this. If you have any questions, want to talk about any kids in particular, drop your comments in there. I think the first thing we'll address is 3 kids that haven't signed yet. There's no reason from Iowa fans to be freaking out. Kelvin Lockett, DJ Johnson, and then who's the third?
Julius Brents.
Julius Brents, that's it. Yeah, the 4-star defensive back. They'll all get announced. They'll all sign. Iowa's not announcing anything yet because the players have either high school signing ceremonies or other various ceremonies where they will kind of announce all their stuff themselves. And I was kind of, I guess, playing along with the kids and everyone around them of holding off on that until they can do that. So don't expect anything wild to happen there. It's just they're kind of going along with the kids' wishes for all that. And I think I heard Largos is out, where Kelvin Lockett is on Friday. So you might not hear anything with him for a few days, even though I know his letter of intent is already signed in. So,
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he's, his high school coach is Marcus Pascal, who played for Iowa back in, I think 06 was his last year. So there's no funny business going on here. I mean, it's just kind of, hey, this is these kids' chance to celebrate themselves or, celebrate their accomplishment. And it certainly is, and definitely for their parents for not having to pay for tuition, as I know. But no, it's, so I wouldn't worry about it too much. So, but yeah, 15 guys. Let's start with the most interesting signing to me, which is what happened today. Dallas Craddiff out of St. Louis. I mean, Iowa ripped hard after St. Louis guys, but this was the one that really came out here. 4-star guy, safety. Bobby, we talked to Tyler Barnes about him and stuff. And what's kind of your impression, and what do you think of this guy?
This guy's a difference maker. They already had 3 defensive backs starting the class, and that was their numbers. And so the fact they still kept after Dallas and went after him hard throughout the entire recruiting process, I think tells you all you need to know about the level of player they think he is. They think he's a difference maker on that back end, can be at safety. And it was interesting because it came out of left field. Tyler told us they always thought he was going to commit to Iowa, and they thought it might happen in the early period, but they didn't really know for certain until they got a phone call about 10:30 last night that it was happening. So, it was, even for them, it was a signing day surprise, even though it was technically the night before, but it happened at the very last second. And I think his signing puts this to the point that we're going to talk about it all. I know DJ and Brents aren't in yet, but position group as a whole, defensive back can be, I think, viewed as good as the defensive line in this class when you look at specifically Nixon, Linderbaum, and Wagner, that there's impact players, and you have impact players, I would argue, at every single defensive back that they signed on there. This is now 10 guys they've signed in the last 2 classes defensive back. If you want to include Riley Moss, who's still going to gray shirt and come in basically a year from January for them, that's 11. That's a lot of defensive backs they've brought in, which gives this team a lot of options on things they can do back there. But with the way the Big Ten is going a little bit more pass happy now, you have Scott Frost and his offense in. You have what's going on at Purdue. I think it's a benefit for Iowa to have all these many guys who they can kind of mix and match, play different sub packages in, and go everything with that route. I don't think you can overstate the importance of getting Dallas, I think.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's a big get for them. And yes, he's on the piece of paper. He's signed. He is sealed, delivered. He's coming. I think some of it is Iowa had a lot of attrition at that position the last couple of years, and you looked at it at safety after Nebraska with Miles Taylor going down. Monty Hooker was out. I mean, they were down to a true freshman and a walk-on at that position. So, Brandon Snyder was out. So, they need defensive backs, and then you just don't know, competition breeds more competition and better players. I mean, right now their number 1 cornerback going into next year is a true freshman right now in Matt Hankins. Now, Manny Rugamba is probably going to start, but you never know, So I would, Manny Rugamba was a pretty good player as a true freshman and wasn't quite as good as a sophomore. So I think all of these guys will have a chance to compete, including, maybe one of my guys who I think is the under the radar guy, and Terry Roberts out of Erie, Pennsylvania, Cathedral High School, which is notorious as one of the best in the country in that area. Bob Sanders played there. So I think there's some potential there for a couple of players. I mean, Jovan Johnson was the guy who was on top of him. He had 17 interceptions for Iowa and still playing in Canada, by the way. We got quite a bit.
Yeah, we got quite a bit here, Josh. Just so you know, Dallas did sign today. He didn't just commit, so he's locked up. As a Hawkeye, so our first question, of course, goes to the quarterback. Who do we compare Petras to? Stanley-type arm. You'll find this interesting, Jason. When he committed, I talked to his high school football coach. It plays at Power in California. So Jared Goff was a high school football player there. Several years ago, this high school coach who coached both guys said Petras has a better arm than the old, the number one NFL draft pick from a couple of years ago when they were both at that point in high school. The kid's just got a cannon. It's probably better than Stanley's, if we're honest. And he can throw the deep ball, likes throwing the deep ball. I think from watching the tape, has a little bit of Brett Favre in him, isn't afraid to go downfield and try to throw it into some tight spots, which he might have to learn a little bit on in college, but I think you'd rather have to deal with that, especially for a kid who seems like all the physical gifts you want. He has the size. He's like 6'4", 225. He has that cannon for an arm, isn't afraid to make plays. Looks like he has pretty good footwork. Improved his accuracy a lot from his junior year to his senior year. His worked a lot on his mechanics too, and so he's overhauled some of the things there. He'll probably have to overhaul some more stuff. Kid's stats this year were wild. He completed more than 60% of his passes, threw for I think over 5,000 yards or 4,000 something, that. 50 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. His 11-minute huddle highlight film of his senior year. That's like 9 minutes and 30 seconds of him just chucking up deep balls. And you never see that.
That's right.
So it's just really impressive. It's kind of amazing that Iowa was able to find this kid who was an Oregon State commit, just kind of sitting there in December for kind of really anybody to go after.
Nebraska was after him pretty hard in October, and Mike Riley still tried to get him because he thinks he's back at Oregon State. But what I see is not quite the sidearm delivery, but I see a lot of Phillip Rivers. This is more of a statue quarterback. He's not really a move guy, not the way Peyton Manziel is, but the cannon is unmistakable. I mean, Stanley has a cannon, and I think this guy's might be even stronger. I saw one of the highlights that really blew me away was he was standing in the pocket probably about his own 45-yard line. He gets hit from behind that would sack most players. He just kind of walked up, threw it 60 yards in the air for a touchdown. And I thought, man, this guy's big, he's powerful. And, I'd say his mannerisms in the pocket are, he's not Peyton Manning by any means, but that's kind of the way he plays in the pocket at that level. He looks like he tips the field. So it's intriguing what the future holds at that position. Stanley's the guy. Make no mistake about it. This guy's not beating him out. But after 2 more years, it could come down to Manziel and Petras, and that's going to be a really fun competition to watch if that's what happens.
Yeah, Matt says, is there any big-name linebackers left to snag up? Anyone off the radar they're looking to take in and keep? I think the biggest name still left is Will Honas, who I haven't seen if he signed it all today.
No.
From nothing that I saw with anybody.
Yeah.
I know it's kind of sometimes come down to Iowa and Nebraska. For him, he wanted to sign early. There's still 2 days left in this early signing period, so we'll see what happens there. But I think he's the number one guy still left on Iowa's board, regardless of position, but specifically at linebacker, a major position of need. After you had the Michigan kid flip to the Wolverines, Iowa will try to sign probably 2 guys there at that position. He's number one there. Kid who can come in from day one, maybe start for you as you're going to lose all 3 starting linebackers and your top 4 linebackers. Really, at a minimum, is a guy who can provide depth. So I think that's your biggest name there. And then Benson, the kid who's the FCS commit right now, who Iowa has extended an offer to this month, who it sounds like is going to come in and visit some point in January, I think is kind of your number 2 guy on that list. And then it's Iowa. They'll probably find 3 or 4 more guys that they have waiting down that list just to see what happens after them. But yeah, linebacker will be the biggest priority for this program to round out the recruiting class with February visits to get everybody, or January visits to get everybody to sign in February.
It's going to be kind of neat, for Iowa, because you can go big game hunting. If you want to, hey, let's go after one guy that's a 4-star that's unsigned, or you could say, let's kind of kick the rocks on a bunch of guys. And, as you mentioned, the Sioux Falls linebacker, and somebody like that, who knows? Maybe he gets, everybody else is thinking the same thing. So Iowa's in on him. So then that brings up, a Nebraska or Minnesota or whatever, and he goes from being South Dakota State to being a Big Ten linebacker. So it'll be interesting to see how this all takes place. But yeah, they're going to get probably 2 more linebackers because right now nobody stands out as clear number ones for next year. They've got 4 guys with experience in the interior. Only a partial experience on the outside. So if junior college guy can come in and play right away, he's going to play.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens there. And Kelly, for your question, any other JC players Iowa's still going after? Outside of that, there's really nobody on their board that they've offered a scholarship to or had, in-home visits or serious conversations with the JUCO level. Now, that might change after all this has happened, but that's kind of where things sit right now. Most of recruiting was kind of a big push to get as many people as they could, and not just Iowa, but across the country, sign in this December period, and then everybody will kind of reset after their bowl games. Then when the January recruiting period will start back up again and kind of go back at it from there.
Yeah. So, Josh says, does Dylan Doyle redshirt or play? My guess is I always skew towards redshirt, especially because they have 2 senior linebackers next year, 2 junior linebackers on the inside. But if he's one of the, if he makes the 2 deep, and then he'll probably play special teams a lot. But I would start by saying probably red shirt because you also got other guys underneath them. You got the Jaimon Colbert, you got Barrington Wade who's on the outside. So there's some players there that still have a chance to make an impact. However, if he can play and they're that young and that it wouldn't surprise me at all if he gets pushed into the 2 deep.
A few points that might help him in the ability to play. I think he will redshirt. That's kind of – you have to take a default stance on that on almost everybody for the most part, unless they're like an AJ Epineza. But he comes in with a body that can play from day one. He's 6'3". He told me he's 223 today. He comes in a position where anybody can play because they're losing every starter there. Anybody on the roster will have a shot to earn playing time. He's also a smart player. That's something I've heard repeatedly from a lot of people, specifically as high school coach, that he's a really smart football player, and those guys tend to thrive at Iowa and across the board, not just here. Those are guys who find ways onto the field. So you have those 3 factors. And the fourth one that he's going to enroll early. You combine all that, I wouldn't be surprised to see him play, but I think he's going to redshirt. Just that's kind of how you kind of have to assume. I think everything goes, for the most part. What do we have? He wants to know if anyone from the Mississippi Valley Conference I was interested in. I don't think an 18 to round out the class.
No, not yet. Not that we're aware of. But you never know. In January, they could start. Okay, let's take one more look at this guy from, and again,
insert any of those schools.
Yeah. Cedar Rapids, Washington, and you look at him and something, Linn-Mar or whatever, and then maybe, but, that could be late. But I don't know if Iowa would go that far unless they really like the kid. Otherwise you might see, Nick Easley, for instance, will probably get a scholarship. He's still a walk-on starter and had most, catches for wide receivers this year. So Ron says, who does he throw to? I figure that's probably what a lot of people are going to ask. It's pretty good tight ends. I think Noah Fant is an NFL caliber tight end. I think T.J. Hawkinson will get there as well. So you basically got Tony Moeaki and Brandon Myers, except a little bit faster version of Moeaki. So I think anybody can throw to those guys and be pretty happy with it.
Yeah. What do we got? Michael wants to know what position Samson Evans will play. That's a good question. Initially was set up as a wide receiver. They've been shadowed recently at running back. And when the coach talked today, Kirk kind of said they think wide receiver right now, but who knows, that could change to running back or even safety. But wide receiver is a good bet for him. I think that's his best position, his long-term position at Iowa. His athleticism has him playing well in space. He's an option quarterback in high school. He plays quarterback, but he's essentially a running back with what they do at Prairie Ridge High School. We won 2 state titles there. And so, he has athleticism. Let him play in space. He's a good punt returner in high school, too. That's exactly what Iowa wants. Get playmakers the ball, slot out, exactly what Brian Ferentz is looking for. Find a way then to use those traits in the offense in some way. And he's not that big. I'm trying to find his size over here. He's 6'1", 205. I don't know if he's necessarily a running back, but I think that can work for Iowa at wide receiver. So find a way to use that skill set that he has, get him the ball, and see what he can do in some open space for you.
Kirk Ferentz said he was, Ed Hinkle, and if he is, then
Yes.
I will be very happy. Similar type build, similar type profile. Hinkle was from Cathedral Prep in Erie, Pennsylvania. Came to Iowa, hard-nosed guy. I think he caught 4 touchdowns on his 4 touchdown passes in his senior day in 2005. Still around in this area, by the way. So if he's Ed Hinkle, he's a wide receiver, and everybody will be happy that he's there. So, see, Ryan mentions that Petrus's feet move like Manning's when he checks down to the receivers. I didn't see many check downs. I saw chuck ups.
A lot of chucks. By the way, it's apparently Petrus.
Yeah.
From
Petrus?
looking at the signing pronunciation. Yeah, it's
Petrus,
been
yeah,
butchering that since the kid committed. So
Okay.
sorry, Spencer, but it's Petrus.
Petrus.
Yeah. So
Patrick or Connor. Let's go.
yeah,
Connor.
Connor says, assuming all the unannounced commitments sign, and yes, they will.
Yeah.
Went over this at the beginning. I was kind of honoring some guys who don't want it announced publicly until they have signings with their high schools or other spots. And don't be surprised if it takes till Friday, specifically with Kelvin Lockett, because that sounds like the word is his high school won't do anything until Friday. So they're all there. They just haven't announced them all yet. Don't worry about it. It says, so that's 18 guys. Kirk said 20 to 22 guys. Who else is on the radar for the late signing period? So at most, that's 4 spots. Probably 2 of them are linebackers. Will Honus, who is yet to commit, even though he said he was going to sign early. I think he's your number 1 guy there. The second, I think, TBA spot at linebacker. That could go a bunch of ways. We already kind of talked about some of the options there. You still got Stoops sitting out there at wide receiver, who hasn't signed, and so that's 3. And then if you end up with a 4th, I think that's kind of a TBA find. The best athlete you can, the best guy you think that's going to fit in. Because at this point, all their positions, there's no need left for them. They can kind of, I don't want to say roll the dice, but kind of try to find a lottery ticket for a guy that they think might work for him. Maybe not at the position he plays in high school. Maybe somebody you think might need a year or 2 to be able to play the position he plays, but it's a chance for them to kind of have a lottery ticket, see if they can find another Josie Jewell or an Akron Wadley, somebody they pick up late that ends up being somebody that contributes for him down the road. Maybe not at the star level like those guys, but at a minimum just somebody who can contribute for him in the future.
It's like raking the yard, and everybody has their piles, and now you look back and there's some leaves over there, and that's what's really this is going to be. I would not be surprised if Iowa finds 1 or 2 more guys somewhere, probably in the Midwest or Big Ten country, and all of a sudden, okay, that's 2-star in Northern Michigan or Wisconsin or Minnesota. Let's give him a look. Oh, wow, how did this happen? That just happened so many times. So that's what I would expect with Iowa.
Yeah, shout out to my boy Tommy for joining on here. Good to see
Iowa
you.
State guys.
Yeah, good to see it. So, all right, let's go to the next one. Patrick wants to know about the Dallas signing and any impact it would have on the unsigned defensive backs. Just so you know, no, it'll happen. You give it time. Don't freak out about it. Relax. It's going to happen. It's things kind of beyond Iowa's control with them, and it has nothing to do with them looking elsewhere. It's just signing announcement stuff.
They retweeted themselves.
They retweeted Dallas's commitment, and we're talking with him today. So
they are excited to play together. So it's not anything to worry about. This isn't Alex Kozan back when Gene Chizik was down at Auburn, and all of a sudden it came down between Iowa and Auburn, and he was very religious, and Gene said, we'll have all the chapels we can for him, and ended up pulling him away late. No, they're coming. No, don't worry about it.
Yeah, Ross with the question on the Minnesota signee from Australia, Daniel Falala, I don't even know how to pronounce his name. I read the story in the side. He's 6'8", 395 from the IMG Academy. He thinks this guy sounds like the Iowa kind of recruit from a developmental standpoint. Was Iowa on him? They weren't.
No.
Iowa had a lot of their line kind of set in place pretty early on this one. The guy is a developmental kind of prospect guy, but the kid's also really new to football from what I remember about him. So, yeah, he's got the size that's going to impact a lot of people, but he was never really on their radar. He was kind of a guy that people down south and anybody who wanted to go into the high end He was a high-end program kind of prospect, somebody like Minnesota that's big on the recruiting front kind of stuff. Somebody who would have been after him or signed him. He never really fit Iowa's profile of the guy. He might have all the traits for him, but the guy, if you would have told me everything about him without anything else, the school he is, the background and all that, I wouldn't have thought that's somebody they would want after.
They're not going after that guy. I mean, they're not going after somebody 395 pounds. Not at that position because of the zone blocking. They want guys with good feet who can move. Generally, that's a gap-style guy. And Aaron Gibson, who was at Wisconsin 20 years ago, but he was like 370. Somebody just wall people off. That's not an Iowa type of lineman. And I think, you got to be excited about the lineman they did get. Jack Plum, 6'8", 250. I mean, he's going to be your 300-pounder in 2 years, maybe your left tackle after either Alec Jackson or Tristan Wirfs. Cody Ince, kind of the same way. So they want people who can move their feet. I'm not so sure this guy can at 395 pounds, especially in pass pro.
And Jeff Jenkins, the interior lineman, might have the best footwork and athleticism of anybody on that line. Basically, his entire job, because he played with Samson, was basically he pulled on almost everything. So his entire tape was everything Iowa wants to see in a lineman. So he comes in with everything they want. Adam asks, is the guy who got the offer from Alabama still signing? Yes, Davion Nixon signed. Yes, he passed on Bama. And no, Adam, you did not read the feature I wrote on Davion that ran on Sunday that chronicled his entire time at Iowa Western and how he thought being academically ineligible, having to go there for a semester, that detour was the best thing for him. So, Adam, go read it. It talks about why Davion thought that was the best for him, why he passed on Alabama, and how that's kind of set him up in a position, I think, to have a very realistic shot of starting next year. He'll enroll in January, but when the season starts in the fall, to have a real shot to start. And I don't know if that would have been the case if he came here to Iowa and would have probably just redshirted this season.
Yeah, or he would have struggled to adjust to the college life. And now, being away from home and being in an environment like that where you don't get quite the gold star treatment, you don't get in a 5-star hotel like you are at Iowa. So now he's got a chance to come here. I think he's for sure in the rotation. Matt Nelson will still start, but Cedric Lattimore, it could be Davion Nixon. Potentially Brady Reef. I think they got a really good chance at D-tackle next year, and I think Davion Nixon walks in as a guy who's going to play a lot right off the bat.
It's funny what can happen in a year, because last year I thought Davion was an under-the-radar guy who could come in and potentially surprise a lot of people because he combines size, power, athleticism, strength, the things you don't ever find the total package in a lot of defensive tackles. Teams strayed away from the academics, which is why he ended up going to Iowa Western in the first place. But I thought if he got here, it would be really good for him. And he went from that to somebody that now everybody's talking about as somebody who could come in and make an impact from day one. So it's amazing what kind of happened with everything there. Bill says, the good thing about the early signing period is you can see who's left, put time into them, direct all efforts to those needs. Honestly, that's true. And that's what I was going to do. Kirk always is like saving a scholarship or two for the end for guys that develop late, guys they think that they can project out. And he made it a point in this class of making sure they had that. That's going to be there with this class with 2, maybe 4 scholarships. More time is going to be put on 19 kids and 20 kids than 18 just because they don't have a lot of kids left to do. I think one of the biggest impacts that'll come in down the road from this is January is going to be more about the future than what's currently there because you're just going to be finishing up a class. It's 95% of your class is already in. I think it's going to be that way most years. Mm-hmm. And I think it's going to give them a chance to work ahead, and it's going to be that way with everybody. And I think you're actually going to see – you think kids commit early now. I think you're going to see some more kids start committing in January. Who won't sign in February, but it'll be a year or 2 out because teams will get to spend more time with them.
Yeah. We got a couple of questions from Jim and Eric regarding Alaric Jackson, the bowl game, and what the offensive line is going to look like. And kind of what Kirk Ferentz said today was Tristan Wirfs is going to move over to left tackle and replace Alaric Jackson, who's suspended for violating team rules. The right tackle will be Levi Paulson. He started 1 game last year at Illinois in that really windy game. So, that's what the offensive line looks like. Now, if something would happen at right tackle, then you might see Sean Welsh moving outside. So they're kind of getting down on the bottom, and they've got to play against a pretty good team. So defensively, and we haven't really given them a lot of discussion yet, but this will be intriguing to see how this works out.
It is, and I wouldn't be surprised if their struggles at tackle, they kick Welsh out for a series to see if that works too. It wasn't their best offensive alignment. Their best line is keeping Welsh inside. But I think with where they're at numbers-wise and injury, or for Alaric, violation of team rules, not making the trip-wise, I think that's your second play because you've run out of other guys that I think they have confidence in to make plays. So it's something they don't want to do, but I think that's their next move if they have to go there and try to find a way to make things work inside. But I think the fact they're not going there to start tells you they know Welsh at guard is the best line for them.
Yeah, we saw that like with Michigan State, that when he was outside, he was okay, but not real effective. And inside, they were a mess. And I think that could happen again. Now ideally you got Ryan, you got Reynolds, and then you also have Keegan Render who can kind of trade off and on, and they could do that again. But man, they're getting down to the low numbers there. I mean, when you lose Boone Myers and Ike Bucker, that's what's happened, and that's where they are right now at that position.
The fans don't want to hear, but for a team that's dealt with injuries up front, there are issues, frankly, especially at tackle all year, it's kind of fitting that another one pops up just because this is the way the whole year's gone. Like, you really thought you'd go all December without it happening again. Not like you knew a kid was going to get suspended for a violation of team rules, but this was there. Like, this kept happening all season, and it's like just a continuation of the same story plot for them. So we'll see what happens. And we were talking before this started, I think it's going to be interesting to see what happens here long term, because if Tristan has a good game and the Boston College D-line is very good, what happens at left tackle then? Because Alaric didn't play. Tristan has the build, the look, and frankly the athleticism to be a long-term left tackle for Iowa. Does he stay there then? Does Alaric come back at right tackle? What happens in that scenario? It wouldn't surprise me. I'm not calling it now, but I could see how it happens where all of a sudden we get to next year and those two guys have flipped positions from this year to last year just because they liked what they saw with Tristan and they want to give it a try and just keep it going.
Yeah, I think that's possible. They have a whole year's worth of work with Alaric Jackson. He was a pretty big pickup for them too, because he talked about late offers. 2 to 3 days before signing day, Michigan comes in and offers him. He's a Detroit kid, yet he's stuck with Iowa. And, he's really changed his body. He's gained like 50 pounds since he's here. He's still only a redshirt freshman, so he's got that kind of ability as well. So, I imagine they'll both work at both sides, see what they have, and it may not be over, and it may not be over even next year. Maybe it'll be in the future. So, but you got to like that. Maybe not now. You get some growing pains, but, when they're juniors, before they both leave early for the NFL.
There you go. Scott's already projected him to be top 10 picks.
And then you see Jack Plum step in.
He's got it all set up. Mm-hmm. All right, John asks, is easily a go for the bowl game? I think so. Wasn't mentioned as one of the specific players who wasn't taking the trip and or is injured. He was wearing the red jersey yesterday at practice, which kind of raised an eyebrow. And so I don't know what's going on there, but I'd be surprised if he doesn't play because, frankly, they need him at wide receiver. Mm-hmm. He's been arguably their most consistent wide receiver all season, and he's somebody they'll want to put in the game plan for to get some plays for. So it's got to be something major in order to keep him out. And there's been nothing that's popped up on that front with them. And today's press conference was weird because it was like 2/3 signing day stuff, recruiting stuff, and 1/3 bowl game, player updates, things like that. And probably if we had 10 more minutes, there would have been a question about Easley there. But that was one of the things bowl game related that just didn't get asked. And the things that mostly didn't get asked that fell off was bowl game specific stuff, because with the signing day today, that was kind of what took precedence for a lot of stuff.
Yeah, they kind of stunk that way. I mean, you'd rather have had 2 different ones, but you're not going to, not with a short life. They're going to be playing a bowl game. What is it? A week from today?
Because they play Wednesday.
Yeah, today's Wednesday, right? Yeah.
Yeah, this signing period is on Wednesday, not February Tuesday. It's a week out.
Saw a basketball game last night. The only thing out of it that I thought was intriguing is Ahmad Wagner hurt his right ankle pretty severely, so he was in a boot afterwards. So we'll see what that means. The way he was hobbling, I can't see him coming back Friday against Colorado or anything. So.
I don't think you would want him to either. No. You're going to have a good what they're basically off until the 29th after that game.
Yeah.
Give him the week plus to rest and then come back. But who knows? We're not the training staff. We're not the coaches. But yeah, it would make sense if they keep him out. I see why you do it.
Yeah. Same thing with Brady Ellingson. He got hurt, but not too severely as well. So, all right.
I'm assuming anyone else know has Will Honas committed or signed anywhere yet. From when we started this, he hadn't signed anywhere. Now maybe in the last 30 minutes, something's popped up, but it's interesting. I think the kid's having a hard time with the decision, which is kind of understandable. He wants to sign during the early signing period. He wants to enroll earlier to school to get a head start on
he's a JUCO kid
where
too.
He's going to go. So who knows? Iowa, Nebraska, who knows? Maybe he ends up going with Kansas State because that's still in there.
Wisconsin came in with an offer.
Yeah, offer late. So who really knows? I think it's going to be a hard 24, maybe 48 hours for the kid on his decision. But no, there's just been nothing that's kind of come out there. That's been the one thing where a lot of kids who aren't signing have come out and said it, or who said they want to take a day have said it just across the country today, not talking about with Iowa kids. So there's just been silence on that front. So it'll be interesting to see what kind of happens there.
Yeah, I think he should probably make up his mind. But then again, I know it's a tough decision, and I'm not saying you need to be at Iowa or you need to be wherever, but he probably needs to make a decision pretty quick. So Patrick brings up, too bad Wagner wasn't playing football. Yeah. He needs to make that switch. If he was even with his ankle, if he was going to New York with the football team, he might be second team, even with that ankle problem. If he was not hurt, they'd say, just go out there and play. He's good. He's better than good. He was a guy that at the very end, when he was committed to Iowa for basketball all the way through, was getting ready to sign, Ohio State came to him and said, are you still committed to Iowa for basketball? And he said, yes. Okay, let us know when you're not committed. And then Ohio State was going to offer him football. Kentucky offered him football. He played 1 year and was first-team All-State in the largest division there in Ohio. Sorry to whet your appetites for a receiver you won't have. But he should make that switch because he's not going anywhere to play pro.
No, that would probably be his best. I don't know, option just to see the court significantly in one of the two, maybe for.
Yeah, he's right now at about a 14-minute, 10 to 12, 14-minute guy. He's started some. He's not a real stat killer. He's not gonna. If he goes to Europe, he's gonna go to some country we haven't heard of yet, or one that's just started. Like
he's gonna go Jordan Ball brothers.
Yeah, exactly. Lithuania. Although, no, I don't know that would be impossible. Aaron White plays there. Aaron White's a little bit better. So I would say switch football. 6'7", 235 wide receiver who can do so many different things. Iowa would be immediately better for it.
Joe wants to know what's up with Dom and why is he not playing. It's not because they're looking forward. He's not earning the minutes. There's players ahead of him. It's got nothing to do with playing to the future. And it's not a spot where you give the senior the first shot to play like they do in a lot of high schools. And then when he falters, you then turn to the underclassmen. Everybody else has just earned the playing time and is in line ahead of him for playing time. I think it's going to be hard for Dom to find a way to consistently crack the rotation going forward. Something's going to have to happen where somebody gets a slump or an injury or something like that for him to start seeing, I think, more minutes.
Sadly, he's got enough athletic ability that he can go on the floor and defend the best player. He can jump. At times he can shoot. He's just not very consistent. He makes too many mistakes, and it's sad. I really like Dom, but he never really got better. He was like the 8th guy when he was a freshman. He was the 6th guy when he was a sophomore, and ever since then he's been kind of floating down the bench. It's really unfortunate for him because. But that said, if you've got Jack Nunge, who's got a huge upside and is better now, why play Dom?
Yeah,
play him. Yeah. Let him get better.
All right, we've ran through all the questions, so thanks everybody for that. I want to wrap this up. Name me the one player in this signing class who you are really intrigued by, whether it's a sleeper or somebody you think is going to overexceed. What's the one name that really intrigues you here?
I would say if I was to go with a sleeper and a star, and maybe you can do the same. My sleeper is Terry Roberts out of Erie, Pennsylvania. I just have this feeling he's going to come, and all of a sudden, he's 5'9", 5'10", but man, he's a ball hawk. He's a honey badger type. And, if he's like Jovan Johnson, then he's playing somewhere. My star, Davion Nixon. he's going to go in and tear people up next year, and he's going to be an incredible player for Iowa. Looks to me to be like a combination of Christian Ballard and Jaleel Johnson. Squatty like Jaleel, tall though like Ballard, and athletically like Ballard. And if that's the case, you're looking at at least a third round or better NFL draft pick, and he'll tear it up next year.
Yeah, I like Davion. I was going to avoid him simply because I was trumpeting him last year, and so I wanted to go with a different name. But I'm going to stick at the position and go with Tyler Linderbaum as the star. He went from under the radar to being a legitimate player with the U.S. Army All-American offer. Kirk mentioned that, and I totally agree with him on that. The kid's crazy athletic. He's a defensive lineman who would take scout team reps at wide receiver. I would hate to be the 5'6", 150-pound high school cornerback who had to go against that, because that's like facing LeBron James. It's just horrible. He's the same kind of way. He has all the traits you want at the position. He's uber athletic for a defensive tackle. He played quarterback all the way through middle school. So he has everything you want. I think he's going to be a future standout guy on that defensive line. And I think the sleeper for this class is going to be Dylan Doyle, simply because he's already got the body. He's a better athlete than most people think. When he went to the opening, he put up a really good score there. He's smart. I think he's that kind of linebacker that they like to play. I mean, I think a Neiman kind of thing, where most of the time in the right spot, athletic enough to do what you need, smart, isn't going to mess up too much. I think he'll find his way on the field before it's all said and done.
Yeah, I think he could be more of a, he could be like a James Morris, kind of hometown hero who walks in and does everything right. And now James Morris played right away because they needed him to. He had a lot of injuries, and it's certainly possible if he works his way up into that. He's in the top, let's say, 8 linebackers, 6 linebackers. He's got a chance to play. So I think that's, I don't disagree with that at all. A couple other guys, you're going to see, as always with Iowa, you'll see 1 or 2 wide receivers who are true freshmen, 1 or 2 defensive backs. And I think that definitely defensive back. I think you might see a corner and a safety get a chance. We're not talking a lot about Wagner and almost, Noah Shannon. I've heard some good things about both of them. But I think they might be a year away from making a major impact. But I think they're impact players in the big picture.
Yeah. All right. That'll wrap it up for our December early signing period Facebook Live session. So thanks, everybody, for all the questions and for the conversation. We had a blast with it. So I don't think we'll talk to you guys before the holidays. So Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, whatever it is you celebrate, enjoy it, and we'll be back talking with you Facebook Live, probably from the Pinstripe Bowl.
Yep, from New York. So everyone have a wonderful holiday, and we will talk to you next week.